A young Muslim sounds off when he says, be a warrior, learn how to cut your enemy's head and then burn down the body, learn how to be the new future of the world caliphate. Another African country has banned the burqa. The Democrats were looking for a bigger horse's ass than Hillary Clinton to run for president, and they may have found him. And Mark Levin says the Republican Party won its majority on a lie. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Riell Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com, and on Facebook, and on YouTube, and in the book, Riell Truth, Stay Angry. And of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number is 877-254-7524. My friends, it's nice to have you back. It's Monday. Clean slate. Let's hit it. Item from Breitbart. Today, one of America's most popular talk radio hosts and best-selling author, Mark Levin, addressed a packed audience at the 37th Annual National Conservative Students Conference hosted by the Young America's Foundation. The audience, comprised of more than 200 students from around the nation, was thrilled to hear from one of the most influential minds in the conservative movement. In his speech, Levin discussed many of the ideas put forth in his new book, Plunder and Deceit, which is already winning accolades from many notable conservatives. Prior to his remarks, Levin sat down with Breitbart News and diagnosed the failings of the Republican Party, namely, quote, that the Republican establishment is the problem. Levin explained that the GOP's problems stem largely from party leadership. In a metaphor involving the idea of House Speaker John Boehner, Republican Ohio, 35% as a Republican in drag, Levin said, quote, Boehner is essentially delivering for Barack Obama everything Barack Obama wants. Just because you're dressed up as a Republican doesn't make it so. By his actions, he's demonstrated he is not a conservative. He spends his time with Representative Kevin McCarthy, Republican California, and Republican Representative Steve Scalise, Republican Louisiana, conspiring against the Tea Party and the more conservative elements of his caucus. I can't think of one significant advance in the cause of liberty or limited government under John Boehner. When he and Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican Kentucky, who's equally bad, surrendered the power of the purse right out of the box, they just delivered Obama everything he wanted. So these men have helped Obama oversee the biggest explosion of government, both in spending and in power, ever, unquote. Levin explained that under current leadership, the Republican Party has been an abject failure. Quote, the Republican Party is a disaster. It has lost its way. I don't think it even knows what its way is. We have a couple of self-serving, powerful politicians at the top in the House, the Senate, and the RNC, the Republican National Committee, and various other places that empower themselves. They like exercising power, and they fear conservatives more than the Democratic Party. They hate conservatives. They hate constitutionalists. They hate the Tea Party. They don't care for the Democrats, but they'll work with them. They have no strategic vision whatsoever, and of course, they have no tactical vision at all either. And they keep saying, vote Republican, vote Republican. But they're doing more to dispirit Republicans and conservatives than Barack Obama. Because people go to the polls, they give them the House, then they give them the Senate, and they get nothing. They also seem to think that bipartisanship is the reason they're in Washington. No, the reason they're in Washington is to advance the cause of liberty and prosperity and constitutionalism. Why would you want to participate in a bipartisan government when the President of the United States is openly usurping the rule of law and openly attacking the private sector and individual sovereignty? Why wouldn't you do everything you can to throw a wrench in his agenda? Levin declared that, quote, the Republican Party won the majority on a lie. He argued that on every issue, from Obamacare to executive amnesty to Obama trade, the establishment Republican Party has refused to represent the interests of Americans. Perhaps nowhere is this more accurately noticeable than on the issue of immigration. Levin explained, quote, I'm offended by this notion that if you're the child of a foreigner and you're a foreigner, that you're a dreamer. Do we talk about American citizen children as dreamers? Do you ever hear the establishment parties talking about young American children or kids graduating college and the impact that these outrageous policies have on them? These observations led Levin to conclude that above all else, quote, the one thing the Republican Party can do insists that its leaders resign. When asked whether he thought the efforts to oust Boehner as Speaker, such as those led by Congressman Mark Meadows, would prove successful, Levin was not overly optimistic. Quote, "Probably not, but to me that doesn't matter. You have to start a movement, a force, an effort somewhere. If this were easy, John Boehner wouldn't be Speaker right now. I expect the entrenched Republicans to do everything they can to trash someone like Meadows because they're protecting the system. They are part of the system, and Meadows is challenging it." Levin called for the emergence of a, quote, "new civil rights movement in which Americans insist that their leaders represent their interests." Quote, "I want to generate a new civil rights movement, not led by hucksters, not led by liberal frauds who use that nomenclature to justify every big government agenda item that they can. The left has stolen the phrase civil rights. We need to take it back using new media, old media, using every available tactic. It's time for young people to stand up for themselves." Levin explains that his new book, whose intended readership includes both what Levin terms as the governing generation and the rising generation, aims to, quote, "counter the textbooks that are pushing the left's agenda and undo the propaganda that media, culture, and professors are constantly spewing." Levin asserts that, quote, "younger people are being manipulated," unquote, and that far too many liberal, indoctrinated youths, quote, "are voting for their own demise." Levin hopes that with his book, he will give Americans the fact that the need to generate this new civil rights movement and force politicians to represent their interests, unquote. My friends, Mark Levin's book comes out tomorrow. Now, as always, I have absolutely no vested interest in you buying his book. I don't make a penny from it. I don't know Mark Levin. I'm not doing PR for him. But I know of Mark Levin's work. I've listened to his radio show. I've read his other books. They're all outstanding, and I have no doubt that this one will be the same. And the fact that our politicians are not representing us is the main problem facing America, and from it stem all our other problems. You know, I used to have a car that broke down, and it was so broke that when I got in it to drive, I noticed that the steering wheel was not directing where the car was going. So I stopped immediately, and I got out, and I had it towed, and I had it fixed. That's where American politics is today. Our leaders aren't leading, and we're suffering for it. It's Monday, my friends. It's Riell Truth. Got a lot for you. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Earth. Well, it had to happen. When Colorado legalized marijuana, most people thought the Green Earth was a marijuana dispensary. Also, it was legalized on January the 1st, 2014. The same day we opened our new location at 4565 Kipling Street, 1.5 blocks south of I-70. There are 83,000 cars a day passing in front of our new location on Kipling Street, and most of them thought we were a marijuana dispensary. So we changed the name of our retail store to New Genesis Health, but we kept the name of our Green Herb Supplements. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name, New Genesis Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Healthy Nature Show with Linda Phillips every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of Him and cried out, saying, "This was He of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for He was before me." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Guys, welcome back to Riell Truth. My name is Howard Riell, and I hate technology. I don't mind saying it. Every time I have to use some kind of newfangled contraption, it's like swimming upstream in molasses. But that's my problem. It's not your problem. This is your problem. Item from... What? I lost it. You see, that's my problem. Now, 1 second. I'll tell you what your problem is, because your problem is my problem. Item from creepingsharia.wordpress.com. Harlem Suarez wanted to bring terror to the Contra Public, according to the FBI. The 23-year-old, also known as Amalek Benitez, was arrested after the feds claimed they uncovered a plot in which he planned to build a bomb and plant it under the sands of a Key West beach. After attacking the Keys, Suarez also wanted to plant bombs in South Beach. Suarez came to the FBI's attention this past April after making Facebook posts promoting the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, a terrorist organization also known as ISIS. Someone tipped off the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office after receiving a friend request from someone using the name Amalek Benitez. Be a warrior. Learn how to cut your enemy's head and then burn down the body. Learn how to be the new future of the world caliphate, he wrote in one such posting. I need some MST from my brother. I guess that means assistance. How to make a bomb. Send me a video or something, and what do I need to make it, he wrote in another. Now, my friends, it's important to point out what's different between Harlem Suarez and other young converts to Islam. The answer is very simple. There's nothing different between this jackass and other Muslim converts, many of whom just plain want to kill people, either in the Middle East or right here at home. Item from Newsmax. Howard Schultz, the chairman and CEO of Starbucks, is being urged to challenge Hillary Clinton for the Democratic presidential nomination. Schultz, 62, is getting encouragement from supporters because they believe, quote, the time is right for someone who's not a political lifer, unquote. New York Times columnist Maureen Downs said on Saturday, it may be a tempting proposition, unquote. My friends, here it is translated into English. More and more liberals are realizing that Americans despise and loathe Hillary Clinton and recognize the fact that she's an inept boob who's never accomplished a thing in her life. They know that she is roadkill, and they're desperately searching for someone to put up instead of her. I hope they don't find someone, because I can't wait to see Hillary Clinton steamrolled in a popular election. Item from Front Page Mag. Only a month after the Muslim-majority nation of Chad announced in June a ban on the burqa and full-face veils, neighboring Cameroon has done likewise, and for the same reason, to save lives. Female suicide bombers wearing the Islamic garments left a trail of death and destruction in July in Cameroon, a West African nation of 22 million. 43 people perished in different attacks, and dozens more were injured in the first suicide bombings ever to take place there. The previous month, Chad had experienced the same devastation from suicide bombers, involving both men and women dressed in the all-concealing religious clothing. A twin suicide attack on June 15th in the nation's capital of N'Djamena, the first also for Chad, left 38 people dead. Another suicide attack in N'Djamena on July 11th, involving a male bomber disguised in the Islamic dress, claimed an additional 15 lives. Chad announced its burqa and veil ban right after the June attack. Unquote. My friends, an innocent question for the men who were wearing burqas and blowing themselves up. When they get to the afterlife, do they still get 72 virgins if they're transvestites? Or do they get a single 72-year-old virgin? Okay, enough joking around. If small African nations are hip enough and smart enough and brave enough to begin banning Islam, why the hell aren't we in the West doing the same thing? Item from Breitbart. The overwhelming majority of immigration to the United States is the result of our visa policies. Each year, millions of visas are issued to temporary workers, foreign students, refugees, asylees, and permanent immigrants for admission into the United States. The lion's share of these visas are for lesser skilled and lower paid workers and their dependents who, because they're here on work authorized visas, are added directly to the same labor pool occupied by current unemployed job seekers. Expressly because they arrive on legal immigration visas, most will be able to draw on a wide range of taxpayer-funded benefits, and corporations will be allowed to directly substitute these workers for Americans. Improved border security would have no effect on the continued arrival of these foreign workers, refugees, and permanent immigrants because they are all invited here by the federal government. Unquote. My friends, I have been telling you this for a long time. Illegal immigration must be stopped immediately, obviously. But legal immigration also hurts the United States of America. Not only are we bringing in people with no skills, no education, and by the way, a lot of them with no personal hygiene, they're taking up jobs that Americans sorely need. Unemployment is running wild in America, and we're bringing in non-Americans to take jobs. If that makes sense to anybody, call my show and tell me, and I will have the mental health authorities contact you at your home. Item from Rasmussen Reports. If the Donald loses the Republican presidential nomination and runs as the third-party candidate, he definitely could put a crimp in GOP hopes to reclaim the White House. A new Rasmussen Reports national telephone survey finds that 29% of likely U.S. voters say they are at least somewhat likely to vote for Trump if he's not chosen as the GOP nominee and runs as a third-party candidate. But that includes only 14% who say they're very likely to vote for him. 68% say they are unlikely to vote for the billionaire developer if he runs as a third-party presidential candidate. 51% who say it's not at all likely that they will vote for him. Unquote. My friends, if Donald Trump wants to make a difference, not just be known for having lined his pockets, but if he really means what he's been saying, that he wants to make a difference and make America great again, then he cannot run on a third-party ticket. He wouldn't win, and he would drain off votes from Republicans, and horror of horrors, we would end up with shrieking Hillary Clinton as President of the United States. A worse fate than that, I cannot think of. Item from the LA Times. Unauthorized immigrants at family and other detention centers are paid $1 to $3 a day through the Detainee Voluntary Work Program. They clean, cook, launder, landscape, and perform other jobs. Quote, it's ironic. It's illegal for them to work, but they're working for the Immigration Service in a sense, said Mark Krikorian, executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, a conservative think tank in Washington. Unquote. You bet your ass it's ironic. It's also obscene to be paying slave wages to people in America. We have a minimum wage and get the cheapest possible labor from outside the country when there are Americans who would be gladly doing those jobs inside the country. Instead, they're forced to sit on their asses and collect unemployment because there simply are no jobs. Item from MSNBC.com, Dateline DC. A senior advisor to Joe Biden's late son, Beau, is joining the Draft Biden Super PAC to lay the financial groundwork for a potential presidential bid, a key hurdle for the sitting vice president if he hopes to take on Hillary Clinton in the Democratic presidential primary. Unquote. My friends, if Biden runs against Hillary, then we will have a choice. Cancer or leukemia? That's about as good as that choice will ever get. If there is a horse's ass in the Democratic Party more outrageous, more obvious, and more poison than Hillary Clinton, then it must be Joe Biden. Item from Agence France Presse. Turkish prosecutors have demanded jail sentences of up to 177 years for 29 people in the southeastern province of Adana suspected of setting up swingers clubs, local media reported Monday. Turkish police arrested 53 people in May on suspicion of pimping and prostitution in raids on 25 addresses in 5 provinces across the south and southeast, after receiving reports that patrons of swinger clubs were bringing prostitutes to the sex parties. Stop! My friends, I can think of few things more stupid than going to sex parties, but here in America, we believe Americans have a right to be stupid. In Muslim countries like Turkey, they put you in jail for 177 years, which shows that their society is not the least bit copacetic with our society. We come from different universes, we want different things, and that's why we should stop emptying Muslim countries into the United States of America. Item from the Free Thought Project, Dateline, Denton, Texas. On Tuesday, a blind 92-year-old great-grandmother named Violet Palmer of Denton was arrested along with her son. They were engaged in a peaceful act of civil disobedience. They were protesting HB 40, a law that effectively nullified Denton's voter-approved fracking ban. Unquote. My friends, a blind 92-year-old great-grandmother was arrested while peacefully protesting. If that doesn't spell police state to you, then I don't know what. Item from the Huffington Post. A new oligarchic era of American politics came into full view on Friday as super PACs disclosed funding details showing billionaires bankrolling the 2016 presidential race to an unprecedented degree. The unlimited money super PACs account for 1/3 of all federal election funds raised in the first half of 2015, up from 4% at this time in the last presidential election. 3/4 of all super PAC money came from more than 500 wealthy donors, corporations, and unions in contributions above $100,000. More than half the money in the presidential race so far to super PACs and the campaigns came from donors who've given at least $100,000. For the first time in more than a century, the majority of funding for a presidential election is coming in six-figure or larger checks from corporations and the wealthiest Americans. The presidential campaigns, limited to a maximum of $5,400 from a single donor, raised a combined $128 million. Super PACs supporting those candidates pulled in $260 million more, with $208 million from those giving $100,000 or more. My friends, here's what we need to do. We need to get money out of politics. Right now, we are flying at warp speed in the opposite direction. We're pumping more and more money into politics. You know, they say one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting a different result. Well, I am not insane, and I expect only the same result from all this pumping of hundreds of millions of dollars into politicians' pockets. Unquote. From TPNN, the Tea Party News Network.com, headline, The Last Rebels, 25 Things We Did as Kids That Would Get Us Arrested Today by Colleen Conley. With all the ridiculous new regulations, coddling, and societal mores that seem to be the norm these days, it's a miracle that those of us over 30 survived our childhood. Here's the problem with all this babysitting. It creates a society of incompetent, fearful adults. My friends, here's a list of all the things we did when we were kids that kids could get arrested today for doing. Okay, here we go. Riding in the back of an open pickup truck with a bunch of other kids, leaving the house after breakfast and not returning until the streetlights came on, at which point you raced home. Eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the school cafeteria, riding your bike without a helmet, riding your bike with a buddy on the handlebars and neither of you wearing helmets, drinking water from the hose in the yard, swimming in creeks, rivers, ponds, and lakes, or what they now call wild swimming. Climbing trees. One park cut the lower branches from a tree in the playground in case some stalwart child dared to climb them. Having snowball fights, sledding without enough protective equipment to play a game in the NFL, carrying a pocket knife to school, or having a fishing tackle box with sharp things on school property. Camping. Throwing rocks at snakes in the river, playing politically incorrect games like cowboys and Indians. My friends, you'll find the rest of it online. We'll be back with more Riell Truth.
Great Plains Power has been providing reliable electrical power systems in the Rocky Mountains area since 1992. Our systems rely on the sun to help make you self-reliant for your power needs. situation, from complete power independence to backup power for the short term. Our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom tailored capabilities is modest as emergency lighting all the way to commercial scale power. Great Place Power is a full service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom design system, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to greatplanssolar.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Great Earth. How many times have you gone into a health food store and are confused as to the many different brands and prices on the same herbal supplements? You want to buy the cheapest, but you're afraid that quality is less, so you buy the most expensive. Truth is, the cheapest may be better. Green herbal supplements are all manufactured in our Wheat Ridge, Colorado plant at 4565 Kimberly Street, using the highest quality herbs that we source from all over the world. Our 150 different herbal supplements are the most potent and safest in America. Our guarantee is your money back, no time limit, just return the bottle into your pool, no questions asked. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name and get his help. Or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
Guys, welcome back to Riell Truth. I am Howard Riell. I am on Facebook, Riell Truth Radio. I am the author of a book called Riell Truth Stay Angry. You can find it at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, virtualbookworm.com, just about anything you like.com. The important thing is you read it and you get wised up to what the hell's going on in this country and around the world, because there's a lot going on that they don't want us to know about. Item from the Free Thought Project. As the Free Thought Project previously reported, on Sunday, July 26th, Zachary Hammond was viciously murdered by police while committing the quote-unquote crime of assisting a woman with purchasing a plant. Hammond, 19, who was not armed, was shot through a side window, quote, in self-defense, according to Police Chief John Covington. However, Hammond's attorney says that the autopsy report proves otherwise. After reviewing the autopsy report, Hammond's attorney, Ronnie Richter, said, quote, the autopsy indicated the first shot went into Hammond's left rear shoulder, throwing him forward in the car, and the second one went at a downward angle into his side from the rear, through his heart and lungs, and leaving out his lower right side. The entry wounds were 5 inches apart. The shots were so close in proximity to each other it would be physically impossible unless the car was stopped and the officer came up very close to an open window. We don't know all the facts, but we know that Zach Hammond did nothing to deserve to die in a Hardee's parking lot that night. And from the evidence that we received, it's clear that the shot that killed Zach Hammond came from behind, not from in front. Item from Raw Story. A former Georgia police officer was indicted this week after cell phone video showed that he lied to justify force against the 69-year-old black man who was moving into his new home. While responding to a suspected burglary call on May 2nd, with at least 3 other officers, then Clayton County Police Officer Ryan Hall said that he attempted to arrest 69-year-old Daruba bin Wahad because he lied about a second burglar being in the home. Although the fellow burglar, quote unquote, turned out to be another police officer, Hall claimed bin Wahad was, quote, uncooperative and verbally argumentative. But cell phone video recorded by witnesses showed that Hall did not have justification when he slammed bin Wahad's head into the concrete. Item from Reuters: 3 members of former al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden's family were killed when a private jet crashed in southern England on Friday, British police said on Saturday. My friends, several members of the bin Laden family are dead. Let's observe a moment of silence. That's long enough. Item from the Washington Post: the Jeb Bush-aligned super PAC Right to Rise USA raised more than $103 million from donors. Newly released reports show 24 donors, 20 individuals and 4 organizations, have given more than $1 million to the group since January of this year. Unquote. My friends, if all these people are giving $1 million or more to a president, then he owes them. What does he owe you or me? Not $20 million worth. Item from the New Republic: the Obama administration's desire for fast-track trade authority is not limited to passing the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In fact, that may be the least important of 3 deals currently under negotiation by the U.S. Trade Representative. The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, TTIP, would bind the 2 biggest economies in the world, the United States and the European Union. And the largest agreement is also the least heralded, the 51-nation Trade in Services Agreement, TISA. On Wednesday, WikiLeaks brought this agreement into the spotlight by releasing 17 key TISA-related documents, including 11 full chapters under negotiation. Though the outline for this agreement has been in place for nearly a year, these documents were supposed to remain classified for 5 years after being signed, an example of the secrecy surrounding the agreement which outstrips even the TPP. Unquote. My friends, let me ask you a question. When did we as a country get okay with this business about treaties and legislation being kept secret from the American people? If you're doing something for the American people, and it's going to make their lives better and make America better and strengthen our economy, etc., you probably would want people to know about it, right? What kind of thing would you hide so that nobody found out about it? Obviously, something that you're ashamed of, or something maybe even that could get you sent to jail. Welcome to the 21st century. Item from Breitbart: what a hoot to watch pundits clutching their pearls and whimpering for smelling salts, aghast over the latest shocking thing Donald Trump said, while the Donald ignores them and continues to soar. Silly kingmakers just don't know what to make of this. Well, we do. The elites are shocked by Trump's dominance, but everyday Americans aren't. Everywhere I've gone this summer, including motorsports events in Detroit, full of fed-up Joe Six-Pack Americans, the folks I meet commiserate about wussified slates of politicians. But then unsolicited, they whisper their appreciation for Trump because he has the guts to say it like it is. Trump's unconventional candidacy is a shot in the arm for ordinary Americans fed up with the predictable, poll-tested blather of squishy, milquetoast career politicians who campaign one way and govern another. But it's not just how Trump says it, it's what he's doing. Trump has tapped into America's great populist tradition by speaking to concerns of working-class voters. He talks about fighting to bring back our factories. When was the last time a candidate talked passionately about reclaiming our manufacturing base and knew what he was talking about? What other candidate chooses American workers over the multinational corporations donating to their campaigns? Who, other than Trump, is talking about the dangerous trade deficits, deindustrialized America, and stealing our jobs? The old arsenal of democracy that allowed us to win World War II is now such distant memory that we can't even build the parts for our own military equipment. We need China to manufacture them for us. How can a great nation explain its greatness without a manufacturing base? Or without secure borders, for that matter? Trump focused in on 2 major populist grievances. the loss of working-class jobs due to awful trade agreements, and the unfair competition for those jobs, along with security issues, or security threats, due to the flood of illegal immigrants pouring across unsecured borders. Now throw in Trump's candor about winning, and you understand why his message catches fire. As General Patton said, Americans play to win all the time. But those of us outside the Beltway can see that America isn't winning. Our enemies laugh at us. Our friends can't rely on us. China is outpacing our military superiority. Putin thumbs his nose at us. ISIS seizes territory our sons and daughters fought and died to liberate. Iran gloats over the idiotic and ultimately catastrophic nuclear deal that the White House caved on. Our friends in Israel shake their heads at our betrayal. Trump diagnoses our problems as incompetent leadership. Who can argue with that? How many politicians promised to secure our borders? So why aren't they secured? How many politicians promised to grow American jobs? So why did they vote for Obama trade? Is it any wonder that Americans are telling status quo politicians, you're fired? For everyday Americans, the beauty of Trump's candidacy is that he's not a politician. There's hope the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal can finally close the deal on all the broken promises of career politicians. Maybe the man who actually builds things, big things, can rebuild America's entrepreneurial spirit with government put back in its proper place. We'll be right back, my friends. More Real Truth.